Okay, so welcome to the next call. I'm going to be looking a little bit more today into the whole equation of stress plus rest equals growth, which is kind of underlying principle of lifestyle, which is really important to be getting into, mainly because stress can both be positive and negative, as well as rest. And to allow better growth, we kind of look at this as an equation, and it's a really nice way to see how you can improve. Stress is going to be both positive or negative, like I said. Okay. Stress can be positive through exercise, but it can be a negative from overtraining or pain, for example, because all of these can affect the nervous system as well. So how we feel. And in the flip side of that, for example, rest can cover anything from nutrition, sleep, and absolute rest, for example, social time, meditation, all these things. So we need to understand like how these affect the way we're going to manage stress, which changes the state that we are in. Okay, a better state will allow for better growth. It will allow for better relaxation, overall well-being, and progress. So we've got an important part to work here. This is a really nice way of doing it. So you can imagine having a bit of a box that you can draw out, looking at positive stress, negative, and then looking at rest as well. And then looking at how many things you're actually doing on a daily or weekly basis and how these are going to add up. So you can look at bottlenecks in your own life to see what's actually holding you back. Okay. And this is a really good one because if stress is always beating rest, we don't really expect to grow. Okay. In like super compensation theory, which is one of the really important things in training, when you work hard enough, you need some time to recover, but you should recover enough. And you basically you have super compensation, and you're a lot stronger when you come back, and you can like use your added gains. But if you're resting either too long, or you're going straight back into training, then you pull the recovery time down too badly. So understanding how to look after yourself and actually get the right balance is going to be a slight challenge, but of course we can work around this. Okay, because we're looking at the nervous system. We do look about how about breathing and how this affects this in a really important way. Now, this is in a very base level. We can use this as an awareness point of view to start with. If you're not someone who knows much about breathing or doesn't even think about breathing when they train, or even just walking around, then this is a really good place to start because we talk about strength from the inside out. Okay, and a really good one for this is starting to understand that we need to breathe, and breathing in every direction helps. And even if you're sat, like right now, if you imagine breathing in and expanding your ribs behind you as well as to your sides, you change the way you're thinking about opening your breath. And you can also do this lying down if it's easier to begin with. Some people it is. And you can control much better because the diaphragm is one side of the body as it pulls. It completely changes the body. The body is all in this motion with the diaphragm and it pulls hard. It's a muscle. And to train that muscle to move more will allow better movement further down the body and better stability down into the core. And this X, which if we were standing with our arms and legs straight, with our arms up, the X is in the middle. That's our core. It's where the force is driving through. This is where movement occurs. So we need to be able to produce tension, pressure, but also able to move it well. If anything's got tension or is, let's use the word dysfunctional here, then we're going to have issues. So this is one of the key elements to creating better movement is the breath. Because once we have it, we can then build rhythm and we can use it more fast and more dynamic way. But to begin with, a really important part is getting that breath. And it will also lead you throughout the day to have more awareness. If you understand your breath and how you're breathing, even when you're walking around, you might just pause for a moment and go, take a deep breath, and you can just actually realize you can just feel a bit more relaxed and chilled, and you realize how much tension you're even physically or mentally holding on to. So this can be being a really useful underlying tool. And this isn't one of those like, okay, if you just breathe better, your life is easier. We all know that's not true. But if we can understand how to use it, then we could at least improve our base level a little bit and have more awareness and control. And this comes from an exercise perspective as well as general life. Okay. So these are going to be one of the fundamental elements go into the equation that stress plus rest equals growth, because breathing is part of resting, but it's also dealing with stress. Okay, and you can improve your exercise by using the breath, because we allow that for better rhythm and control. Now, understandably, if you're going balls to the walls, as they call it, 10 out of 10, you're going to be sweating like crazy, and breathing is a pretty hard thing to keep on. But we can use breathing as a pacemaker. Okay. So by first of all understanding how you can breathe better and with more strength, you can use this as a pacemaker for your training. So even if we're coming, especially when it comes to power breathing, which is kind of a specific way of breathing and exhaling, we can use this to create very powerful movements. Even when it's something like the crawl, just trying to use nasal breathing, we can move through a better rhythm because it's pacing with our movement. It's very easy to kind of completely disassociate the two and lose it. And everyone's always trying to think that harder breathing is just going to be better. It's like, yeah, sure, it indicates you're working really hard, but how long will that last? Are you out of sync? Are you actually going beyond what you're capable of? And that's why you constantly get injured, falling back. We were just over the training. Okay. So this is why we want to start thinking about our breathing and how we're going to integrate into movement. So one of the first things you can do are the 90-90 drills, which are, maybe if you've been in physiotherapy, you might have seen this before, with the legs up, lying on your back, and you can put your hands into the wall behind you, push into it, and it pushes the rib cage down into position. And then you can take a deep breath to create that pressure in the abdomen and learn how to deep breathe and create that tension. Okay. So this is going to be a really essential exercise to get started with. After that, you can take it into something like the squat and just start adding more moving dynamic exercises. Okay, so in that idea of a braced core, this is where that's coming from. This is learning about actually what bracing is in terms of absorbing force and using it. And this is something that really relates to, I'm going to call it like total tension in the body, because if you see a professional rugby player, for example, like no one's standing still robotically and going, oh, I better tense my core before I change direction, and like, because that's the strongest way. It's like, no, tension is relative to what you're doing and your ability to hold it. We learn how to brace first because it teaches us what it feels like, and over time that integrates, and then we just dial up or down the tension depending on what the force is. So your core should still have rotational strength and pull, but even if you are someone with different ability to create tension and strength through their core to rotate, let's say you both rotate exactly the same movement, but one can actually withstand a lot more because everything is trained to do it in a very fast and dynamic way to withstand. So our ability to transfer force is going to be important. So learning at this level, just literally about how to handle movement and pressure, makes a big difference. And then we can get into the idea of rotation, moving faster, and all the different elements. So that's going to be the most important part to focus on today. Okay, it's about breathing, it's about integration, and how that relates to your exercise. Also, how this is going to relate to your day-to-day life. Part of stress management. Okay, for all fathers out there, you know, I can totally say that finding any method of stress relief is important, especially during any activity. Taking control of the breath makes a big difference. It can calm everything down. It can calm down your pace. It can give you clarity, give you focus. If you can find that balance between able to exert a lot of force, being able to train well, as well as calm yourself down, the power of the breath really is quite a strong element at the heart. So now moving that into exercise a little bit more, is where do we start with making a difference? I think there was a reel posted yesterday that I put out. If you're watching this smartly in the past, then you might lose it somewhere. But it was talking about just getting in there and doing the reps and doing some work. And that's going to be a really important point. If you haven't started, just doing something means you're going to be 100% better than yesterday. So there's a really good starting point. But that's just doing some work. That's getting the energy flowing. But at some point, we want to make sure we're matching it. Okay, so we talked a bit about this earlier. To get this to match, you can put the breath with the rep. Okay, so this starts to pacemake with yourself and you're controlling. Okay, so you could do it that way. You could, of course, measure your heart rate because that will change your breathing rate as well. Okay, there'll be some kind of relation. but trying to keep things under control. Because if you're in a stressful position now and you're trying to train you're trying to train within this stressful situation, and we go back to that equation, we're not trying to load more stress on the body. So if you're already trying to fight 100 different fights, you've got all these different fronts you're fighting on, and your body's just got this stress response going on, and you're like, right, I've got to train, I've got to do more. Then it's like, okay, so how do we build this in so it doesn't add to your stress? And now not only are you mentally worrying about doing it, but is the work itself not going to overload you? So this is how it all mixes in really well here. How can we use the breathing with the exercise to match in without overloading stress on the body, but still training and making gains? Okay. So now we're at this position. We're going to integrate it. We want to choose an exercise that is regressed to a level that's going to be good for you, that can repeat over and over. Because if the intensity is going to be too high and you're not ready to access that kind of level, then you need to have a regressed version. So we need to have something easier. For example, let's say there's a tricep dip with your full body weight for your chest and shoulders. A lot of people can't do that, and they can't do a lot of them, even if they could do it. Okay, it's hard. So picking that and going, I'm going to do this for my chest and triceps because it looks good, or I'll just grind it out, that's just going to destroy you. Not only will you be able to match breathing well because you're concentrating on too many things, you won't be able to repeat that practice well. So instead, let's move it back. Let's look at push-ups, or maybe decline push-ups, maybe pull it back again. Maybe you have to do it from your knees. Maybe you do an incline. That's fine, because right now it's about connection of your breath to your movement and integrating this better. When you can follow along and access this better, then you can build a volume with it as well. You can practice. We do repeated good practice. This is why it's better to look at how you're doing something rather than just saying A to B. Okay, moving A to B. This is one of the principles that we're always going by. Like, what's the minimum thing that you can do, and how can you do it well? So we're not always looking for that 10 out of 10. We're sometimes just looking for a 5 out of 10 in difficulty of the exercise. But it means then you have more access, you have more capacity within that movement to do more and control it, so you can get more from it. Does that make sense to you? If you think about it for a moment, when was the last time you did a really big exercise and you're just like, shit, I can't even think during this exercise? Okay, that can happen. But I like to take the push-up as a good example because I think it's a relatively nice example. It's very, very scalable. Okay, very scalable, and there's a lot you can play with. You can play with range, tensions, time, weight, actually. You can play with so much stuff. Okay, speed, there's so much stuff you can play with. So let's say your max normal full strict push-ups are 10 reps. Okay, there you go, 10 rep max. Okay, so maybe you want to use one regressed version, so you have access to more reps in total if you did a test. But then now you can do loads more volume and start playing with things like depth, how slow you go at the bottom, how you can pause and kind of pull the shoulder blades back to gain access towards the floor to push up and practice, because you'll have big access to the repage now. So you're going at a lower level, building a bigger base will not only give you less stress in your training, but it'll be more enjoyable, and you're going to achieve more as you basically snowball your training. So this is the main part of today. There are a lot of concepts wrapped up in there, and it kind of why it always starts from the breath. So I hope that it hasn't jumped over anyone's head right now. It's just about taking your time to think, if I can breathe better, and then I can integrate this into my movement, then I can pace myself better, and therefore it can give you an idea of the kind of exercise selection you need and what you can access. And there's nothing bad about regressing something if it allows you to improve the movements that you have access to. Okay. When you can do that, you can practice more, which means you're getting much bigger gains much faster. Again, less stress going into the equation because you're doing something that isn't hitting you like a hammer. And sometimes you need to be hit like a hammer, but not all the time. 80% of the time, we're not working like that. Maybe 20%, and we do a quick peak. That's a story for another day when we talk about waiving the load and specialized variety when it comes to structuring the training. Okay, so breathing, pacemaking, access to movement, and better practice. That's going to be the main thing of today. And if you've got any particular questions on it, fire away. Happy to answer through these. And you can read more in the ebook on the app to get more details from this and how to do the breathing exercise, and to see this sort of presentation unfolded in the ebook, and actually how to go through this. Okay. If you've got any questions, do feel free to send them over. If anyone is listening right now, so I'll pass over to Michael in case you've got any questions. If you haven't, it's all good.
No, I'm good to go.
Cool, man. Wicked. In which case, thank you very much to everyone for listening for today.